Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to EIG's seventh in a series of webinars on future-proofing leadership with an AI mindset, embracing roles in automation. Welcome to the webinar today. Our John, Danny, and I are pleased to have our guest panelist, Bill Magnuson from NexusBlue. And our founders, John is CEO of Atlantic Handling Systems, and Danny's from SMC Data, and I'm from Enhance International Group. Thank you again for joining us today, and we look forward to your participation throughout the webinar. Please enter any questions and comments in the chat, and please do participate in the word cloud exercises coming up. We look forward to your comments and participation again. This is the seventh of the series of webinars. Our first webinar was maximizing your production on warehouse capacity. Then we went into financial investments and then applying the digital twin to the warehouse, then applying AI to the production warehouse environment last August. Then we got into the economics of setting up a new facility. And then we got into the managing the state of technology from an IT perspective. And today, we're topping it off here is looking at it from a AI or a CAIO mindset and future-proof leadership perspective with Bill Magnuson. And then next month, we'll get into bringing it right back into the supply chain. We are living in a VUCA world, as we know, with all the tariffs. So we're going to have that slant on embracing AI and all these technologies. With that, I'll have go over the deliverables for today. The first deliverable is looking at AI integration for end-to-end. And then we'll look at the ideas to reduce cost and risk across the organization using artificial intelligence. And then Bill will get into leveraging an AI mindset to do more with less. Then we'll bring it all together into a return on investment, AI-driven modernization, and we'll also deliver some practical applications that can make a difference today. With that, I'll turn it over to John for his intro.
Thank you, Jim, and good morning to everyone. I'm with Atlantic Handling Systems. We're out of New Jersey. Our associates have been designing and supplying warehouse equipment and systems for well over 40 years. We supply people in a wide range of industries, everything from manufacturing to distribution. We like to be called a one-stop shop for all of our system integration with people. And we partner with people like Dani and Jim and Bill to try to give you the best deliverable we can. We're a division of a company called Mayberry Material Handling. And we have 135 employees up in East Longmeadow, Massachusetts, along with our employees here, which makes us one of the largest material handling integrators in the Northeast.
Thanks, John. And Dani?
Good morning, Dani Kaplan. I represent VAI, a company called VAI for the past 25 years plus. It's an integrated ERP software that has manufacturing, distribution, food, and pharma, include warehouse and CRM, and it's one-stop shopping, runs on the cloud or on the server, and has a total integration to the warehouse.
Thanks, Dani. Bill?
Yeah, so I'm Bill Magnuson. I'm the CEO and founder of NexusBlue. I come from a very diverse background. So when we started NexusBlue, the intent was to be a mediator between technology and business, and we focus more on the business processes around technology and the direction that we are focused. We get involved with a lot of CX projects as well as manufacturing and other sectors. Our scope really is to help organizations by stepping in, helping them, rescuing their technology challenges where they are. It could be industrial challenges, it could be world challenges, especially with things like new tariff regulations and government changes going on right now. And then we focus on fixing those organizations and putting process in place. And then we help them reimage where we need to from that perspective. We offer fractional services like fractional CAIO, CIO, and program management. And we really push really hard across the teams and our global presence, because we do have teams here in Dayton, Ohio, where I'm at. Melinda's on from Michigan. We have resources as well in the Philippines and in India, because we do a lot of work with different outsourced companies throughout the globe. We are really about results, and what you see here in the results aspect is 97% success rate on projects that have really failed or needed rescued, where we've stepped in and put in processes and found experts like John and Dani and Jim, and several hundred others across the globe that really have that support background, the knowledge, the skill sets, and that's what we focus on. We're not a service provider. We don't provide product. We're not an MSP, so we're strictly there for strategy and governance and oversight. Thank you for having us as well, Jim, Dani, and John. I appreciate it. You guys are great partners.
Thanks, Bill. We're honored to have you. You bring a breath of fresh air to our group. Thanks so much. And with that, just a little bit of EIG. As you saw, our three partners here. We have over 80 partners in our group, and we work to drive link strategy to execution through tactics to deliver self-sustaining 90-day programs with very strong ROIs of well less than a year. And today our strategy is around the CAIO mindset. So that's what we're focused on today. So with that, we want to help you build and invest to grow your company. With that, we're going to kick it off with, let's just look at this from a high level perspective. We talk about the fifth industrial revolution. We've been talking about the fourth for the last 10, 15 years or so. But now we're really entering into the fifth industrial revolution with artificial intelligence. And this quote from Bernard Marr, a futurist: to truly activate Industry 5.0, we must move beyond automation for efficiency and embrace AI as a co-creator in human-centered innovation. So with that, I'll turn it over to Bill to comment, and we'll each of us will comment. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, I would just say I love this quote because it does come down to beyond automation and efficiency. We've got a lot of co-creator ideas out there in the industry, specifically in the AI space. It's become a key word, key topic over the last few years. Many of us have been on the journey for 10, if not 20 years, with automation and technology evolution, moving to cloud, looking at machine learning, data models, what does robotics look like, and been part of that across the globe. And it really comes down to understanding what that human-centric aspect is in innovation, and knowing that innovation is becoming just part of our life, part of the journey. But we're going to talk today about mindset, and that mindset here that Bernard laid out for us is truly true, right? We are going down to Industry 5.0. I know there are people now that we're probably Industry 7.0 based on the speed of change that we're seeing across the industries right now. So yeah, I look forward to it. I think this is going to be a great session, good opportunities, and we are here about what does the future look like and how do we get to an autonomous workplace in the future, right?
Absolutely. Thanks, Bill. John?
So Jim, here in New Jersey, two of the gubernatorial candidates are proposing a moratorium on warehousing. So what that's going to do is it's going to create a situation where, you're going to have to automate more, you're going to have more intelligence, and AI will be a driving factor in that. And you won't be able to expand, so you're going to have to do more in your current space because of this moratorium that's being proposed. I guess the end result is they would like to create less truck traffic in New Jersey by doing that. I don't know how that's going to happen, but they are proposing that, two of the candidates.
So move more goods, but less trucks.
Yes. Yeah. Somehow.
Somehow. Interesting. Dani, your thoughts?
Yeah. AI is a new reality today. Some businesses are afraid of AI, but it's the future of technology, of integration. The best way to describe it is the horse and the cart in the car. When the car came out, people did not like it, so horse is noble, but became reality in the car. The same is AR. It will be a dominating factor in our life. It will be a must to control the inventory, what you have in inventory, what's available after you allocate it, and who to buy it from.
Well said, Dani. And I'll just leave it with a quote from one of my partners who says, AI is here. If you think it's not going to come, then you're pretty much going to be out of business. And so AI is here to stay. You have to embrace it because there's no arguing about AI. And to really get to 5.0, as all of our guest speakers here mentioned, is, it's going to be built into everything we do, everything, and it's everything we do, everything we say, everything that's moved is going to be using some form of artificial intelligence over the next 2 to 3 years. And it's moving at an exponential rate that we can't even fathom. And the other thing to consider is the rest of the world is using AI, and we are starting to lose our edge on AI when you look globally. So we're either going to get on the bus or we're going to be taken off the rails, so to speak. With that, we'll go into the agenda today. And, we're going to go over what is the AI mindset. Bill will lead these first 3 sections on, and in the second section being AI outsourcing, and then this chief artificial intelligence officer transformation. Then we'll get into how to incorporate into the production environment and some best practices there and what we see coming and going here. And then as far as case studies, we'll go through a few case studies showing AI in the manufacturing environment. And then we'll get into some financial return on investments that have been proven on implementing AI. So we'll get started with the AI mindset. Bill?
Yeah, so thank you, Jim. I think you laid on the AI mindset quite well earlier. AI is here and it's not going anywhere, and we're going to have to embrace it eventually. I think that's easier said than done sometimes. And I was just looking at Mark's comment here in the chat. He was talking about, what is the energy consumption problem and the environmental impacts with AI. When you start with that and you think, okay, well, what does that mean? And how does that hinder the technology advancements and the direction that we want to go with AI? It does play on your mindset. And there are some big activities going on, especially around sustainability and what does that look like with the electric cars, the data centers that are being built, not just support of AI, but technology as a whole. AI is, of course, driving a lot of that. Here in Ohio, as an example, we've got 5 new data centers. We've got Amazon coming in, we've got Google building their data center, we've got Microsoft building theirs, we've got a large chip manufacturer coming into Ohio as well, Intel. So the technology space and the evolution and the power grids, we were talking about the power grid collapse and what does that market bond look like right now? And we just sold at market for 800 times the rates of prior. That's a substantial impact in the environment. So how do we look at AI mindset? Because I think those are all attributes and they play into it. Ours is about how do we create efficiencies in whether it's manufacturing or other sectors. Because we know that we need to automate. We know we need to find cheaper labor sources. There are lots of things with tariffs and regulatory and other things going on. And I mentioned some of that here on the slide. These are the things that we hear about. What does that end-to-end automation look like from a skilling perspective? How do we manage culture? How do we look at bias, ethics? Those are all parts of that AI mindset. And for me, it's really about looking at AI not as a new technology, because I think, I'm getting, quite honestly, a little tired talking about AI as much as I think it's the future of transition of being able to use technology and the you know the new tools and the views and automation that's coming out, even with speech and voice and video. The technology is amazing. It uses a lot of resources, but we have to figure out how to efficiently play that out so that we're not harming sustainability long term. So that's very important. But if you look at it, my perspective on it, and I think you can move to the slide, but I wanted to talk about mindset from outsourcing. Because when we talk about what does the future look like, we are not outsourcing to people and resources and other activities. We're going to be outsourcing to technology. I think that's important. And then the other piece of that is getting your organization to embrace across every aspect of it, whether it's in the sales or the marketing cycles or the distribution, the trucks that John mentioned a few minutes ago. How do we build efficiencies and create opportunity? We have to think about how can we leverage technology to do that for us. And we're seeing technology now with AI that, you ask it a question, it provides you an answer. Or you're now seeing more of I was just on a voice app the other day and it sounded just like me. But it wasn't me. It was my voice readapted to AI modeling. But it's about getting people to think smaller activities of evolution change. That's what we're talking about, how to outsource it, and then how do we make gains from that activity. So that's really important. So if we go to this slide here, which is the adaptive of the mindset across the organization, it is embracing decisions. It's looking at what does autonomous results look like. And when I talk about autonomous, that means it's completely ran by technology end to end. But it requires a human oversight as well. And that human oversight comes into 4 things for us that we focus on with organizations that are looking to shift. It's how do you form a quality matrix and a quality team that's governed and managed with AI, and it uses technology to do that, but it's always looking over the process and making sure that it's successful and it's yielding the results that we want. And that's a quality assurance, and we have to enable quality checkpoints at every aspect that we implement, and then monitor those for consistency and progress. The next one is training. The output of that quality forms into training, and we have to train the models. We have to train our teams on how to make that rapid change and put that into play. And then the third part of that is really around the strategy and the oversight, and it's being referred to as the chief AI officer. But it really is that strategy oversight of everything that's going on, and how do we ensure that we've got in conclusion, we've got guardrails, we're looking at governance, etc. And then to keep that all in check, especially as we do a lot more with robotics, with artificial intelligence system changes, the mechanical aspects are key. So I get asked a lot, well, what does it look like for people if we're building an autonomous environment with an AI mindset and everything's automated? Where do the people fall in? And it really is developing those 4 skill sets, being the best around mechanical engineering, being a strategy thought leader in the process, managing quality, valuation of those assessments, and then consistent training, and that involves knowledge and other things to make it your own. So you can go to the next slide.
So with that, we'll go into the first polling question. So hopefully the polling is working. If not, please enter your response in the chat on is AI the responsibility of the IT organization? So Bill, I'm sure you get this question every day. Who owns AI?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So what are some of share with us some of your dialogues there?
Yeah, I'll just share a little bit here. AI is definitely not the responsibility of IT. AI, when you talk about systems, machine learning, data lakes, you're looking at how to build systems to operate and scale, even zero code environments. AI that we see today, and it's evolving, is now becoming the responsibility of everybody in the organization. From marketing, we see a lot of organizations right now adopting ChatGPT, because I'm going to use it as a reference. And it's not the best model out there in the world, but what it does is it creates an opportunity where people can ask standard questions through natural language, and it gives you a result. But it's allowing them to build marketing plans. It's allowing them to build operating models. People are rewriting their code of ethics, leveraging AI and open models, and we're trying to help them get to more closed models. But AI is not the responsibility of IT any longer, because IT has a very small play in how all of this comes together, because it's really third-party sources that people are leveraging across all organizations right now. So when we talk about what does leadership look like, every leader in the organization has to start looking at a company being a technology company before it's a manufacturing company. And that's the conversation I'm having with a lot of manufacturers right now. Because it's, IT is a big part of it, but the way we're going to be leveraging the technologies across artificial intelligence and robotics and how they come together and building that end-to-end system cohesion, it involves everybody, even janitorial admins across the organization, to be aware, to be part of the journey, to be at the table, and know what actually needs to happen. And so we're trying to get the mindset here, but also the leadership aspects, to know that, it is, we used to have a chief strategy officer, and I look at the AI officer and the chief strategy officer much the same way, as much as I look at the CEO or the CXO leadership. It's about embracing and knowing what are those variables and how are they going to change. And we need to establish guardrails. And we need to establish what do we really want it to do and how do we want it to respond, and then implement processes and practice to do that. So that's the view that I see. It's technology leaders are there to keep the lights on, make it run, make sure that we're secure in our environments.
Thanks.
And that's the change. Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
so
and-
Jim, this is John. I just want to comment. I see there's a question. Can you comment on the argument about AI being an environmental/energy consumption problem?
Yeah.
I can comment not on AI, but I can tell you on the automation side, many times we'll do a system, we'll have the system all ready to go, and the power company cannot provide the necessary power for us to fire up the system, and we have to wait months for that to happen. So
Yeah.
this is something that I'm sure with the addition of AI, which is going to be a big part of integration, it's some type of problem really to be deal with. And on the environmental side, of course, there are people who feel we shouldn't be using fossil fuel, so that's also another problem. So we need alternative solutions. And from what I've found so far, most of the alternative solutions cannot provide enough power for us to be significantly increase the grid to what we're going to probably need. So it's something that we're going to have to work on, and somehow someone's going to have to try to solve that to get us to the next level.
Great comments, John. Danny? Your thoughts?
No, it's like anything else. Everything is required training, and every new technology and every new invention, people at first is resistant because the fear of change. But once they get over the fear of change and start to embrace the new technology, it will make a huge difference, controlling your inventory, business knowledge, and all that.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting when you look at the chat, everybody said no to this resoundingly. There's if you look at the chat, is AI the responsibility of the IT organization? But there needs to be somebody or some part of the organization that leads it. I think that's the whole idea of the CAIO, is you have a person who will know when to use it, when not to use it.
Yep.
And then from a power perspective, you know, myself, I worked at GE Power Systems for 15 years, and we've seen this since the 80s, the increase in power and need on the grid for clean energy, nuclear power. There's a lot of alternatives out there, but clean energy certainly, as was mentioned, can't make up for the entire power base that's required. And then the switchgear, which is required in a lot of these old warehouses, where the warehouses, all you had power in there was for the lights. Now you have a whole ecosystem in there. So, you know, one of the first things you should do is to check out, do you have enough power going to the grid, and does the switchgear that powers your warehouse, can it even handle the load that you're looking to implement? And what you'll probably be seeing is more solar arrays, more augmented power at local facilities, whether in different forms. So I think those are the things that I see coming in the next upcoming years. So we could probably spend the next hour on this slides, but we'll move on. Great dialogue. With that, I will try to move on to the next slide. If this will cooperate. With that, we'll go on to AI outsourcing. Bill will lead us on that, some perspective there. Bill?
Yeah, so just a little bit about this, and I mentioned it earlier. You know, I do look at technology as an outsource third party, and I'm leveraging this in a couple different ways, because one of the questions that came up, as well as, you know, who owns training, and what does that look like across the organization? I think it's owned by really every group that's in place, but also I think there's a technology responsibility for training as well. And part of that, what I mean by is, if you're outsourcing work to another country, another part in the world, whether it's resources, for manufacturing purposes, for product supply, we've been doing that for a long time, but trying to get organizations to understand that technology, or AI, where it's at now, is really outsourcing. And I'm, you know, it's about leveraging the same outsource process that you've been using for years, through the process, but now leveraging it to technology and putting focus on, you know, AI as an outsourcer. And when you build your strategy, your process, your procedures, accessing resources, use those third-party agreements that you already have in place to build out your AI strategy map. And instead of, you know, outsourcing to a single resource or to a set of smaller resources, we're now outsourcing to a resource group, which is AI, that has unlimited amount of resources, unlimited access to knowledge, but more importantly, it needs to know your knowledge. And it is about building your existing data sets and letting it work as a, you know, a data-like mindset for machine learning purposes, to focus on what your objectives are. And that's what I'm talking about when I talk about AI outsourcing. And it is about building a roadmap that everyone in the organization understands. They're part of that journey. And for every activity that we implement, and Dani and team implement, you know, from an ERP perspective, having access to the systems and resources, and how do all those parts come together, and pieces in the manufacturing process. With AI, we can now embed that across all of the operating processes and procedures, our training manuals, our guides, our process and procedures on the line, as well as shipping, distribution. All of those things can come in as part of that container, and we're going to educate at different levels across the organization. But we're going to, you know, the first step of that is knowing that it is just an outsourced activity, and we're going to leverage technology, and we're going to say, can it be done with technology first? So some of the things I've been seeing with some of the larger organizations around outsourcing, they're saying, if, you know, before I go hire a resource, and I think this is key, can we outsource it to technology? and can that job be done leveraging AI? And prove to me that it can't be, and it really requires us to go hire a resource. Those are the right mindsets and the way we outsource. And if we start with that logic first, that'll change everything else downstream. And if we get, you know, from HR all the way through to this top level CXO or CEO, chairman of the board, and they always ask that question first, it will change the way we do everything else.
Thanks, Bill. Whoops. And go ahead.
Okay, so we're talking about CAIO, Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer. Do you want to go to that next slide there?
Yeah, so we'll just go to the next polling question. Hopefully the polling is working. If you refresh the poll, it should allow you to enter into the poll. The first polling question was full, but it should allow you to enter in now if you hit refresh. So this polling question is, what is the role of the CAIO? We've been talking about it, and why do we need it? We have a few thoughts there on empowering the organization with artificial intelligence, things that we've spoken about, and education of where AI can be used and what is the most practical place to use it. Of course, providing a roadmap is key, and making sure that you have the systems in place to do it. And of course, I will end my comments here on maturity. You know, what's the maturity of your organization, of your processes, as well as your IT systems on what you can handle and what you can't handle. So choose the crawl, walk, run approach, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. Bill?
Yeah, so I think all of these things are valuable for what the CIO role is. You know, I talk to a lot of organizations and they assume that it's another technology position. It really needs to be a strategic position with an AI mindset, thinking about how do we leverage technology, what does technology do, but more importantly, be aware of the marketplace, and understanding what are the capabilities of AI, you know, from speech to thought leadership to being able to do natural language. What does a agentic agent look like? How does that work? And then the one thing that's not being talked about a lot right now is predictive. And the predictive aspects of AI are, you know, very, very important because it starts looking at the modeling and behavior and line conditions and equipment failures, and that predictive analysis, and looking at all these different data components as a complete organizational picture that includes things like ERP and digital twins and other aspects in the model. The Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer has responsibility for all of these things. So they do need to have a good technology depth, understanding where things are happening in the marketplace. What are other organizations doing, talking with other leaders across different, you know, disciplines, whether they're part of their immediate ecosystem or whether they're part of a larger group. They need to be aware of all those digital trends and what's happening in that space. And then they need to identify ways to come back and empower and train, and that constant communication with the rest of the organization. So a lot of what we talk about here that you're seeing on the screen, I think it's important, is they have to educate, they have to structure the roadmap. Where are we going? What are others doing? Build out a plan that can be implemented. If you want to go to the next slide, Jim, while we're seeing that, because I think these are things that I see right now going on.
Sorry, this modern software.
Mm-hmm.
Here we
So
go.
those are all spot on. I think this audience knows this role pretty well.
Yeah.
Yep. I honestly wish, Jim, that they had the, if some of the C level resources that I talked to and some of the strategy experts out there had the same understanding and knowledge that it's being shown here on the screen, that would be a very powerful thing. I think when we talk about it, it's definitely not about tech. It's what does the production environment look like? What are our goals, our long-term objectives? That has to happen. It's also about getting the organization to accept the thought process of what is technology first look like. Can we outsource that activity or work effort to get there? Identifying the strategy over the systems, because the system, while it's important for the chief AI officer, it's really about what is the strategy that we're trying to achieve. Can we build those efficiencies, the flexibility to drive that responsibility across the organization? But I also want to point out that they also have a financial hat that they have to wear as well, because I think it's very important. If we're going to outsource it to technology and technology is not where it needs to be, or it costs more energy to run it than what we have, or we need to add more servers and we have to put more spend into our IT space, that's not a strategic direction either. So we have to measure what is the cost and efficiency of leveraging artificial intelligence over another way or the old way of doing things, and managing that cost attribute in the direction as well. So, they're responsible for all of that. And they also have to make sure that, what does that disruption look like? And how do we manage disruption across the organization? Because constant change, and you mentioned it, Jim, earlier on the call here, Zoom put in some new features today on managing the call and the activity. So, in the artificial intelligence world, as we enable it, we're seeing constant change, constant new activities coming. So it's about helping the organization put in the safety rails, providing them guidelines, providing direction, getting that, having those conversations. And I think communication is probably the most important role of what a chief AI officer needs to do. And they have to talk to everyone in the organization to say, where are they at in their life cycle? What do they need? How do they need to be skilled? And giving them knowledge and allowing them to play in environments that allow them to become a better resource of using it and adopting it. I think that's the biggest challenge I see right now, and that is the role of the AI officer in the organization today. These benefits here, because we talked about a lot of things here, from mindset to what does a chief AI officer look like. I think the polling questions have been great. The responses from this group and the chat has been fantastic. To get results, especially a 97% success rate, it requires consistent conversation. And most of the time, when we step into an organization, and I've been privy to some really big transformational projects, where they fail is the conversational path to the rest of the organization, letting even our administrative resources know what's on the roadmap, what's coming forward, why should they adopt or not adopt, how do they adjust change. Once we enable those resources and track that from a project perspective and break down the silo barriers, that is the biggest challenge that we've seen, and it also creates the biggest results. Because as we're evolving here, and I was mentioning this on a call this morning, actually I was at an event this morning, and one of the things that came up is cybersecurity. Is cybersecurity responsibility of whom? IT or the rest of the organization? And the reality is it's everybody in the organization. But the other side of it is, we used to look at IT as being a software developer. We used to look at them being shadow IT. Now shadow IT exists in everyone. because artificial intelligence has become a reality to everybody's desktop now. They can do anything. They can build their own code. They can do all of that. So we have to start looking at not just our siloed ecosystems, but the whole process. And that's what when we talk about project recovery, we're opening the doors and having conversations, individual conversations with no harm, just to ask those questions. That drives customer experience improvements, loyalty. We talk in business, it's about trust. Do I want to work with you, Jim, if I don't trust you? We put up the shield. Technology and AI has been the same thing. Nobody wants to embrace it or accept it. We don't trust it. But then once we build the experience and the knowledge and we become a little bit more powerful, then we create that experience and loyalty, which drives operational efficiency. We're actually 26% is, was a nice target. We're moving that forward. I think we're about 35% right now, about creating efficiencies. And I'm going to talk about a drive-through experience here in a little bit as a case study. That operational efficiency model is even higher in that space. So these are things that we're seeing by real result, and we're enabling artificial intelligence at each one of these steps to collect that feedback, to collect the knowledge, to get the insights that we need, because the data is becoming very readily available, even if it's unstructured.
Great points, Bill. Yeah, I mean, it's the AI benefits are out there. Communication's a key, and setting expectations and delivering on those expectations is just like when we were talking about digital transformation not too long ago. This is now that next step leap forward. So it is a mindset change, as what you've called this overall presentation is. We have to change our mindset and the way that we look at running companies if we're going to be competitive in the upcoming years.
Yeah. So Jim, I just want to throw out real quick, because I think it's a great opportunity for everyone on the call to take advantage of it, and not enough people are doing it. One of the things that we're pushing here, and I've talked a lot about things that are not IT or not AI specifically, because it's about process and thinking about how we do things traditionally and doing different. The one thing I would recommend everybody to do here is start looking at transcription. And we do that in our meetings today. So if we're in a voice call or we're having Teams or a Zoom call, we're seeing it's the transcriptions there, the call is being recorded. But start implementing that in your everyday process and meetings, even when they're one-on-one, and getting an agreement that you can sit down and record that conversation. Because one of the things that we've learned is if we can transcribe and sit and have those really deep conversations and transcribe it and then put it back into a repository, we can pretty much build out a lot of these models that we need to with artificial intelligence now, where it's looking at the transcript, it's pulling decisions, it's giving us not only the meeting notes, but it's also helping us build the strategy. So I tell people, pull out Word sometimes on your cell phone, and just hit the microphone button and record the conversation and share your ideas and thoughts. And then the other piece of that is there's a lot of different expertise coming out and around how artificial is adopted. So we also have to look at leveraging what have others done in prompting, what are they using in technology, and just having more open dialogues around that conversation. So I do want to call that out, but transcription is key. And then, getting more insight from your systems and just raw data. It doesn't have to be structured data. That raw data is key to building that success.
Yeah, the ability to extract information out of conversations
absolutely
is unparalleled now. It's pretty much unparalleled. That anything that and being on top of that is key.
Yeah.
with that, we're going to move into the production environment and seeing some of the best practices there and what an ecosystem looks like. And Bill, give us an overview on an ecosystem of an AI, what you will need in an AI ecosystem.
Mm-hmm. So this is I think a great overlay, and I appreciate you, Jim, and Dani and John sharing what you've done in the past, because this shop floor example plays into it very well. Because if you go over to the right-hand side, that outsourcing piece and enabling artificial intelligent technologies and robotics into the workflow is key. And thinking about at every one of these integration points, how do we do that, and how do we leverage the technology that's available in the communities to bring that together and have those conversations as an outsourcer, and process that is probably the most important piece here. On the left-hand side, the quality oversight, the tools and the technologies that are there to take all of this raw data and bring it together from the ERP through all of the system production environments that we have in the environment, even things like sustainability measure with electrical POS, machine operating attributes, all of the IoT devices, all of that data, and putting it into a repository, just a data lake structure, is very important. Because if we can look at that and we can start looking at quality and insights and predictability, that's the tool set that feeds what the artificial intelligence officer needs, but as well as strategy, governance, ethics, compliance. And so it's a consistent feed mechanism of, we're putting it in place as an outsourcing, we're identifying new technologies to handle certain process, we're feeding that into a system, it's able to see that entire data, and then we're feeding the ERP with updates and conversational flow, which then creates our modeling and the mindset shift that we need across the organization. So it all flows together. And organizationally, we're building a mind over process, which is looking at it as it is the mind of the operating model. And we're able to pull out and extract data based on memory, new opportunities, and then predictability of the future. And I think that's the part that I wanted to call out here. So it's taking all of what we've been doing and then layering in that override activity, but leveraging artificial intelligence to make better decisions.
Nice. Very nice overview, Bill. Is that John?
Yeah, Jim, we just want to talk a little bit about AI and automation and the integration between the two. What you see here on the right-hand side is a typical conveyor system, with a what we call a pick module. And what we talked about before, you're going to have to use more of your warehouse space and cube. We can build these in multi-level pick modules. I've done them up to 4 levels high. And this is a perfect application for e-commerce. And it's surrounded by flow rack on each side with conveyor down the middle. And what we do is we have a pick and pass operation here where people can scan the barcode and it will know what to pick from their zone. When they get done with their zone, they will push it down to the next zone and continue it. And when it's finally done, it could be done in the first 5 or 6 bays. If it's done, they push it on a takeaway conveyor, which takes it out to be packed. So this is a very, very traditional now way to do e-commerce, which, years ago we were shipping pallets of goods, then we went to cases, now we're doing eaches. So anyone who's in the e-commerce world, this is what we have to do. Now we combine this with the intelligence of Dani's ERP and WMS, and then we put it together, and AI helps us to, analyze what we're doing within the pick module and how we can become more efficient.
Doing that predictive automation. Very nice. And as John said, you know, all these modules, ERP, WMS, OMS, MRP, WCS, all these beautiful acronyms, TMS, all 3-letter acronyms, they all fit together. I mean, you still need this. So it's not like this is going away, you know, with AI. You still need all that. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dani. Dani?
This is the VAI overview software. It's a one-stop shopping, distribution, manufacturing, warehouse integration, analytic, mobile, e-commerce, and CRM. What this translates to in today's M&A world, a manufacturer by a distributor, and a distributed by a manufacturer. They end up with multiple ERP systems, which create inventory issue. A good example is on my website, Romer International, worldwide manufacturer, plastic manufacturer, both distributors, and end up with 3 systems, 3 ERP systems that could not integrate to manufacturing distribution. Finished inventory and raw material dropped to 90%. Today we have one system is 99.95 accuracy. Having integrated system is essential today, especially in today's reality of supply chain and inventory issue. If you don't know what your net inventory is, production disruption, order cancellation, and business disruption. A good example is not to have a good control of your inventory. Last year, Volvo and Telsa stopped production because of short supply. So having integrated information is essential now. This is the warehouse management, just got an award, nationwide award. It's equivalent to a Manhattan Associate without the complexity. And it has all the basic issues that needed. How much will fit on a truck? First step in the front, left step in the back, heavy packages, light packages, cold storage. The whole thing is integrated into one system. So there's no need to have 2 systems of. Often people don't buy standalone warehouse management, try to integrate to the ERP, and then you have integration issue because if there is an upgrade on one of the software, there's a broken link, and then each one blame the other, which create business disruption and multiple hotline support. The warehouse management is part of the whole system, and as you can see, got a national award for the best warehouse management in the industry.
Thanks, Dani. And just to build on this, you know, and Bill mentioned this before, you know, having a real-time S&OP system, digital twin, predictive, and Bill mentioned the whole idea of predictive sales, inventory, and operations planning is crucial in your neural networks. Using neural networks, that's what is up and coming here, and putting this on top of the ERP and managing everything from sourcing all the way through customer service on top of that. So to put a digital twin from Creatisoft, we're talking about 3 months of work. Phase 1 and 2 are focused on the laying out the current situation, and phase 2 is now getting into a digital twin of the current environment. Phase 3 is really when you get into an actual digital twin, because in this phase, you're completely aligned to all your forecasting and your alerts, and your remediation plans are popping up on the screen for all the stakeholders. The scenario planning is done in real time, and you're actually optimizing in real time. So when something shows up late, or something gets moved to the wrong place, or a quality test rejects a lot, it automatically updates all the production, everything that you need to do in real time. And that's when you really get into taking advantages of a digital twin. So that's a little bit over on the digital twin. And then we'll get into, John will kick us off here on the 3 stages to transform your company.
Okay, so what we have is the automation implementation, which is really system integration. When we're using AI and we'll use Dani's WMS. My automation needs intelligence to reach its highest level. So what happens here is that the configuration between all of the partners, and that's what's important. That's what Bill was talking about before. We need a quarterback to bring this all together and help us to get the maximum productivity out of the automation and the system implementation.
Dani?
I'm sorry. This is the That's the system. This is an integrated system where the warehouse management integrated into the back office, into digital twin, and it's all one-stop shopping. So you don't have multiple module and multiple vendors that require calling multiple hotlines. Having one-stop shopping is very important.
Bill?
Yeah, so in stage 3, it's really about bringing all of that together, and being able to scale and look at it across the view. I think what you mentioned earlier, Jim, around digital twin and getting that information and being in a place where we can do that, creates the opportunity as well for, enabling agentic agents that can actually start making decisions and working through the process as well. And we do that through taking all of that insight and building what I call specific knowledge sets or containers that allow us to build that model and even enhance what we're trying to do across these different aspects, where it now is feeding the ERP with decisions in real time. So I think that's a big part of the stage 3 efforts.
And then taking this at the 50,000 foot level, you got to start with an AI mindset. A good site assessment of what we have and what you don't have. Then you can do a digital twin layout of what your facility is going to look like and how the widgets are going to move through the facility. The site automation specs with John and team, Dani's ERP, and any auxiliary other systems that you're needed, such as AI vision systems by our partners Arvist, and tooling consumption with our other partners, and any strategic modeling that may be required. And then, of course, we have AI voice companion that does not hallucinate, or it hallucinates, but it tells you it hallucinates. It makes it so that you know what is real and what is not real. So we have all these services, and of course, operational excellence and change management. How are you going to get through all of this? We have all of those services within the EIG umbrella. So we do believe in the crawl, walk, run approach. And we're not going to get into the details here, but that is the way to do it. Start small and implement and move to the next level. With that, we want to get to the case studies, and we'll kick it off with John.
What we have here is a client of ours that what they did was they provide knives and swords and so on and so forth. Sell a lot to people who would do martial arts. And what we had here was over 2,000 SKUs. And we put in, like the system I showed you, a pick module, and it's high density pallet storage up above. So what we were able to do here is increase their picking efficiency and to get their errors down. And when we used it with the WMS, it really got them to like 99%. Here you just see the tri-width conveyor I spoke about. There's gravity conveyor on both sides with a power conveyor in the middle. What they'll do is they scan the pick ticket and it tells them how many to pick in their zone. When they're done, they pass it to the next zone. The conveyor that's on top there is a trash conveyor because we generate a lot of corrugated. And what we do is we can just throw that onto the trash conveyor and it'll take it out to a dumpster where their corrugated is taken away. They had over 10,000 different items, and they were doing a cycle of more than 100,000 picks. And we've gotten them to a point where the ROI was less than 1 year.
Thanks, John. Great story. Danny?
This is a case study of having an integrated system. They needed ERP, warehouse, and a retail module. Under normal circumstances, they might have had 2 or 3 systems which have require integration issues, multiple vendors, and when there is a broken link, AT&T blame Verizon, Verizon blame T-Mobile, and T-Mobile blame God. This case having one system, it has retail, rental, equipment rental, and all the item on the left side. And that's the bottom line is, here's the testimonial by the CEO, which is one-stop shopping, address all the issues with one system. That's another more detail of it, what the benefit of the system is. They have customer satisfaction, they order online, they have cash registers, and it's a retail and a wholesaler and with the warehouse management all combined into one system. And the testimonial at the bottom is having the partnership support is the most important thing in today's reality. Anybody can promise you the moon and deliver a cheesecake. Having good support is essential. Otherwise, the best car in the garage with a bad dealership is not driving.
Nice, Danny. Bill?
Yes, I won't spend a lot of time on this particular use case. It's not your traditional manufacturing sector that you would envision. This is a retail fast food chain, but it does apply to the manufacturing sector because the fast food industry is probably one of the tightest grip manufacturing sectors that we have. And there's been a lot of evolution going on in this space. This particular use case is with a large fast food restaurant, but it was identifying ways of enabling AI. And I thought it was a perfect use case to say, how do we get this mindset shift? Because fast food has always been labor-based, intense. And as of the last few years, we saw the labor rates, specifically in the fast food restaurant industry, continuing to increase, labor shortages. There was a price point, just like everything else, when the price got to a certain labor rate. In this particular case, it was $20 an hour. It started to make sense of how do we leverage technology to solve for the use case. And what essentially coming together here, and what happened was we were able to take a very manual automated workflow in the drive-through and turn that into insights where we were able to use agentic agents with natural language, multi-language skill set, video in the ERP systems that they use in the point of sale, taking those menus and driving that workflow where we could actually simulate leveraging artificial intelligence, that entire work process. So the order was now taken from AI in whatever language they chose. We're just now starting to enable video, like in this particular use case on the screen, where we can identify who's actually having the conversation, who's in the car, are there kids in the car, are there animals, are you on the cell phone? And we start adjusting tone and variables. And it processes that and has a conversation. What we're seeing as a result is $30 million of overall savings. We saw a great year-to-year 200K per store, and it also helped us stop fraudulent activities because we're able to use predictive analysis to say, hey, someone came to the drive-thru and ordered 300 hamburgers. It wasn't a valid order, so we started adding predictability, and we then eliminated waste and other activities. But that also, the entire process is going to become a completely autonomous storefront experience. And what does that look like in the human experience of it going through the drive-thru? The results that we're seeing is 96% accuracy on orders, which is unheard of in the drive-thru space. Getting the order, making sure for special orders, upsell environments, they just completely changed the model. And the customer satisfaction scores that we're seeing out of it are extremely high in that regard because of those automation sources. And once you train it, we train it once, and then we put the feedback there. So yeah, so that was it. That was a great use case. I just love that story. And I'll continue to push on that. The other one is the automotive manufacturer that we worked with. Very similar situation, what Dani was talking about, and John mentioned, a lot of legacy systems, dysfunctional support. But once we started to be part of that journey and identifying not just the ERP system, and doing the selection process, it was looking at every workflow process and breaking it down to say, can we leverage technology there? Can we put an IoT device or a sensor on that device to track movement, motion, process? How do we look at video, and tracking those parts and making sure that they're getting where they need to, and then taking all of that data, structured data, and putting it together into an artificial intelligence model, that we could scale and start building agents, predictability, and workflow. And we've started to enable that across the entire environment, bringing all of that together into a consistent view. If you go to the next slide, it really turned into a very much like in the fast food organization, where it was local operation. It now became a command center of live analytics and support, where they were remotely able to make change to the process, and make technical nudges into the experience as well, and do training in real time and provide real time interaction feedback, to make those decisions a little bit faster. And that command center now operates the entire production floor assembly model, using the systems and the integration and the sources. And then they're able to now stack their resources to more effective work environments, and then also increase their safety measures. So it was a great use case. That the results here, as you can see, were fundamental, in driving that process.
Thanks, Bill. With that, there is a question in the chat about, have you seen any unintended consequences as you've implemented AI?
Yeah, we've seen tons of them. And I would say that this is where I'll go back to saying, are we learning from the environments that we put in play? Are we looking at the quality stats, and measuring it in real time for those values? Because the first time actually I got engaged with this particular project, with the fast food industry, because I went through a drive-through and I had a robotic experience. And their model was in a consistent upsell model. It didn't even relate to what we were doing. And then the people were disconnected at the drive-through window when we got up there, and they ended up taking the order and doing the whole thing again. And I will caution this, because I think the consequences, as with anything you're going to implement, you're going to see it accelerate, especially when you start driving with artificial intelligence. So you have to start building a model, what I call quality assurance, and making sure that you're constantly monitoring. Is it performing exactly the way you want? And then is that experience really giving you the result you want? So for us, that was the big one. And what we ended up doing in that example was going back to the drive-through and doing real-time call statistics, modeling and listening to every conversation. What did they do? How did they interact? How did they respond? And we built knowledge sets, that we could train our models to respond better and more of a human natural approach. And that even applied in the auto industry space on the part manufacturing. Is we started to record the processes that were happening, and then take that knowledge and start building training models for that. And I think that's, to answer your question, you're always going to see the consequences, but if you don't put the monitoring approach and the oversight up front, it's very difficult to control those. And that's the experience that we had. So that was spot on. I think you have to consider how you're going to manage the process.
Well, with that, let's close it out here with some financial impacts. John, kick us off here from the warehouse perspective as we move to
Sure.
Industry 5.0.
I know we're moving along here quickly, so I'm just gonna say, what we can do when we automate is we can increase efficiency. You can see the percentages. We reduce labor costs, increase productivity, we enable better accuracy, higher throughput, and one of the most important things is space utilization, especially today as it gets tighter and tighter and it's harder to find space. Of course, we combine this with Dani and his WMS and ERP and with Bill on the AI side, and we have a great deliverable for you. And the ROI is typically 1 year on complete system.
Nice. Thanks, John. Dani? You're on mute.
Having warehouse automation and ERP under one umbrella makes a big difference. It eliminates the chance of having broken link when one of the software gets upgraded. It reduces the chances of having inventory issues, tracking the material, low cost, and the integration. In today's reality, is essential. You have to know what your net inventory is. Net inventory is what allocate for production and future orders, what's left over, whom to buy and how much to buy. And having multiple visibility, multiple locations is essential because one location might be overstocked and one understocked. So either with a common carrier, you can ship it from another location or move it over. So that's the benefits of integrated system.
Thanks, Dani. And Bill, close us out.
Yeah, and I would say here it's really a combination of what you just of both sides, what John highlighted and what Dani highlighted. Having the right chief or artificial intelligence office in place, and looking at its fractional leadership across all of those domains and how all these systems come together is key. I think the other key aspect is it helps reduce the resistance of implementing and putting the right process controls in place. And none of this can be done without that consistent oversight and managing it across the project delivery stack to get these results. But what I've seen is acceleration in all of this. So if you can get the right process leadership and the mindset at start, you can achieve higher result numbers.
As you can see, there's plenty of opportunity out there. And people say, invest in the stock market. Still, your best investment is in your organization to grow it and scale it in these upcoming years. With that, I want to thank everyone. Hopefully you got everything you wanted out of this webinar. You're always free to follow up with all the presenters. And next month, we'll be having another webinar from a supply chain perspective. And we are living in this VUCA world, and that will be Mandy Shellnut out of LA. And she's certainly seeing the impact of the tariffs. And who knows where the tariffs will be in a month from now? Anybody's guess. So with that, we'll close it out. And John, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I just want to thank Bill and Dani and yourself, Jim, on a great webinar. And this is something we have to embrace. Everyone knows it. It's the future, and the future is now. So thanks to the whole panel.
Absolutely. Dani?
It's a new reality we're facing to now with the tariff and inventory issues and the Red Sea. So having integrated AR with warehouse management and ERP is essential.
Bill?
Yeah, I would just say, I think it's the leadership of the guys here on the call, with Dani, John, and Jim, and the organizations that they support. I think it's what brings it all together. And these partnerships, these responsibilities, as you're approaching what are you going to do with artificial intelligence in the future, I think it's very critical that you're building the right network and the right support groups and asking the right questions. Third party outside view and experience comes into play here, but the world of experience and knowledge that they bring to the table is really what brings it all together and gets the results we want.
Yeah, and I want to thank all the presenters, Bill, John, and Dani, for your hard work putting this presentation together. But as you can see, it's all about collaboration. it's the 1 + 1 = 3. And here we got 4 of us. So it's we're equaling infinity. And
Mhm.
so thank you for your questions and your comments throughout the webinar. We appreciate it. It makes us better. And hopefully we're making everything a bit better. And hold on tight, because AI's not just coming, it's here, and it's going to change everything in the next few years. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.